When an 18-year-old girl walked into a luxury hotel covered in bruises, the staff saw someone they wanted to turn away. She didn't ask for help. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for work, because 2 children were waiting for her to come home. But the man who owned that hotel saw something nobody else did, and the decision he made changed everything. The lobby of the Hale Grand smelled like imported leather, and something floral Marlowe couldn't name. She'd walked past this building 100 times, always on her way to somewhere cheaper, somewhere that didn't notice people like her. Today, she walked in. The woman behind the concierge desk looked up, and Marlowe watched her expression shift. It started with professional courtesy, the kind you learn when you work in a place like this, and ended somewhere between concern and suspicion. Marlowe knew what she was seeing. The bruise along her jawline was 5 days old, fading from purple to greenish yellow. The bandage wrapped around her left hand was clean, but it was drugstore gauze, not hospital grade. She was limping, favoring her right leg, and the exhaustion under her eyes had carved itself into something permanent. She didn't belong here. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Her name tag read Simone. Her voice was careful. "I'm looking for work," Marlowe said. Her voice came out steady. She'd practiced that. "Housekeeping, kitchen, front desk, anything." Simone blinked. "Do you have an application?" "No." Marlowe shifted her weight, feeling the pull in her ribs. "I can fill one out now. I can start today." "We're not—" Simone paused, glancing toward the back offices. "We're not actively hiring right now, but if you leave your information, I can work nights, weekends, whenever you need someone." Marlowe kept her hands still at her sides. She'd learned not to fidget. Fidgeting made people think you were lying. "I don't need benefits, just hourly." Simone's eyes dropped to the bandage again. "Honey, are you safe? Do you need me to call someone?" "I need work," Marlowe repeated. "That's all." The silence stretched. Somewhere behind them, a phone rang. A luggage cart rolled across marble. "Let me get the manager," Simone said finally. Marlowe nodded. She didn't sit in the leather chairs near the window. Sitting meant getting comfortable, and she couldn't afford that. If they told her to leave, she needed to be ready to walk out with her dignity intact. She counted the seconds. 143. The man who emerged from the back hallway didn't look like a manager. He looked like someone who owned things. Thatcher Hale was 36, though Marlowe didn't know that yet. What she knew was that he moved through the lobby like he'd built it himself, like every inch of polished floor and imported stone existed because he'd willed it into being. He wore a suit that probably cost more than 6 months of rent. His dark hair was pushed back from his face, and his eyes, gray, sharp, assessing, found her immediately. He didn't smile. He didn't ask if she was okay. He stopped 3 feet away and looked at her the way someone might look at a puzzle they hadn't decided to solve yet. "You're looking for work," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Housekeeping?" "Anything." His gaze moved over. Her face, her hand, the way she was standing. She forced herself not to look away. Men like this, men with power, they tested you by watching how you reacted to being seen. "You have experience?" he asked. "Cleaning, inventory, customer service. I've worked restaurants, retail, hotels." That last part was a stretch. She worked one motel for 3 weeks before the owner went out of business, but it was technically true. References? Not recent ones. Why not? Because the last place she worked fired her when she missed 2 shifts after her stepfather broke her wrist. Because she couldn't explain the injuries without raising questions she couldn't afford to answer. Because every time she tried to build something stable, life knocked it down. "Personal reasons," she said. Thatcher was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You're 18. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes." "You live nearby?" "Close enough." "Alone?" Her throat tightened. "No." He waited. She didn't elaborate. Most people would have pushed. Most people would have asked the obvious questions, demanded explanations, tried to fill the silence with concern, or judgment, or pity. Thatcher just nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something he already suspected. "Come back tomorrow," he said. 8 a.m. We'll do a trial shift." Marlowe's chest loosened, just slightly. "Thank you." Don't thank me yet, Thatcher said. His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. You'll be cleaning guest rooms, 6 floors. If you can't keep up, you're done. I can keep up. We'll see. He turned to leave, then stopped. What's your name? Marlowe. Last name? She hesitated. Pierce. He looked at her for one more beat, and Marlowe had the strangest sense that he could see straight through her. Not just the bruises and the exhaustion, but the fear beneath it, the calculation, the weight she was carrying that had nothing to do with her injuries. Then he walked away. Simone was staring at her. He never does that, she said quietly. Marlowe didn't ask what she meant. She left the hotel, walked 4 blocks to the bus stop, and rode 12 minutes to the part of town where the buildings leaned and the streetlights flickered. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The lock stuck, the way it always did. Marlowe shouldered the door open and stepped into the smell of mildew and something burnt from the unit next door. Jamie was sitting on the couch, legs tucked under them, staring at the TV. The sound was off. Ivy was asleep on the floor, curled around the stuffed rabbit Marlowe had found at a thrift store 3 months ago. Jamie looked up, 7 years old, with Marlowe's same dark hair and their mother's sharp chin. Did you get it? I start tomorrow, Marlowe said. Jamie's shoulders dropped, not relief, just the absence of the worst-case scenario. What time will you be home? I don't know. Yet. Marlowe crouched down next to Ivy, brushed hair off her face. The 5-year-old didn't stir. But I'll be back. I always come back. Jamie nodded. They both knew the promise wasn't enough, but it was all Marlowe had. She'd walked into that hotel, looking for work, but she wasn't trying to survive for herself. 2 children were waiting for her to come back, and she would do anything to make sure she could. Marlowe arrived at the Hale Grand at 7:53 a.m. She'd left the apartment at 6:30, taking 2 buses and walking the final 8 blocks because she couldn't afford the transfer. Her ribs ached from sleeping on the floor. She'd given Jamie and Ivy the couch, layered with every blanket they owned, and the bandage on her hand was starting to fray at the edges. She'd rewrapped it in the gas station bathroom. The employee entrance was around the back, near the service elevators. Simone had told her where to go when she'd called yesterday to confirm the shift. A woman in her 50s with graying hair and kind eyes met her at the door. Marlowe, she asked. Yes, ma'am. I'm Gloria, head of housekeeping. She handed Marlowe a uniform, black pants, a white button-down, a name tag. You'll shadow me today. If Mr. Hale likes what he sees, we'll talk about a regular schedule. Thank you. Gloria's gaze lingered on the bruise. Marlowe waited for the question. It didn't come. Locker rooms down the hall, Gloria said instead. Change quick. We've got 15 rooms to turn over before checkout. The work was brutal. Marlowe had expected that. What she hadn't expected was how meticulous it needed to be. Every corner vacuumed, every surface wiped down twice, pillows fluffed at exact angles, towels folded with hospital corners. Gloria didn't cut her any slack. You're limping, she said on the 4th room. I'm fine. You're slowing down. I won't. Gloria studied her for a moment. Then she handed Marlowe a bottle of ibuprofen from her cart. Take 2. Drink water. Don't pass out on my watch. Marlowe swallowed the pills dry. By noon, her hands were raw. By 2 p.m., the pain in her ribs had sharpened into something that made breathing difficult. By 4, she was moving on autopilot, muscle memory carrying her through motions her brain had stopped directing. She didn't complain. She didn't sit down. When Gloria told her to take a break, she used the time to check her phone. 3 missed calls from the elementary school. Her stomach dropped. She called back, stepping into the service stairwell for privacy. Ms. Pierce? The school secretary's voice was brisk. Jamie didn't have lunch money today. Marlowe closed her eyes. I thought I put a check in their backpack yesterday. It bounced. Of course it did. I'll bring cash tomorrow, Marlowe said. Jamie also said they haven't had a physical in over a year. We need updated immunization records by Friday or they can't attend. I'll take care of it. And, "We've noticed Jamie's been falling asleep in class. Is everything okay at home?" The question was loaded, coded. "Is everything okay" meant should we call someone? "Everything's fine," Marlo said. Her voice stayed even. "Jamie's just been staying up too late. I'll handle it." The secretary didn't sound convinced. "Okay, but Miss Pierce, if you need resources—" "I don't, thank you." She hung up before the woman could finish. Her hands were shaking. Resources, that's what they always called it. Resources meant social workers. Social workers meant investigations. Investigations meant questions about why an 18-year-old was living alone with 2 kids who weren't legally hers. Questions meant answers. Answers meant Jamie and Ivy being taken away. Marlo had seen it happen before. To her friend Kayla, whose little brother got placed in foster care after their mom went to rehab. To Marcus down the hall, whose sister was split up between 3 different homes because the state couldn't find a family willing to take both kids. The system didn't keep families together. It broke them apart and called it help. Marlo leaned against the concrete wall, focusing on breathing. In, out, in, out. She couldn't lose them. She wouldn't. When she went back to the 6th floor, Gloria Brewery was waiting by the cart. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah." Gloria didn't believe her, but she let it go. They finished the last 3 rooms in silence. At 5:47 p.m., Gloria led her back to the employee locker room. "You worked hard today," she said. "Mr. Hale wants to see you before you leave." Marlo's chest tightened. "Did I do something wrong?" "If you had, I'd have told you already." Gloria's expression softened slightly. "He just wants to talk." Thatcher's office was on the 8th floor, accessible only by a private elevator that required a key card. Gloria swiped hers and pressed the button. "Good luck," she said. The doors closed. The elevator moved silently, and Marlo watched the numbers climb. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished metal. Pale, exhausted, younger than 18, and older than she should be. The doors opened. The hallway was quieter than the rest of the hotel, carpeted, dimly lit. At the far end, a frosted glass door stood partially open. Marlo knocked. "Come in." Thatcher was sitting behind a desk, made of dark wood, reviewing something on a laptop. He didn't look up immediately. The office was minimalist. No family photos, no personal touches, just clean lines, expensive furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Sit," he said. Marlo sat. Thatcher closed the laptop. He leaned back in his chair, hands steepled, and looked at her the same way he had yesterday, like she was a problem he was deciding whether to solve. "Gloria says you kept up," he said. "I did. You're in pain." It wasn't a question. "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." Marlo met his eyes. "I can do the job. I don't doubt that." Thatcher's voice was calm, measured. "But you're 18 years old with fresh injuries, and you're working like someone who doesn't have a choice." "I don't." "Why not?" "Because I have 2 kids depending on me. Because the rent is due in 9 days. Because if I don't work, we don't eat." "Personal reasons," Marlo said again. Thatcher was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You're not living alone." Her pulse spiked. "I didn't say I was." "You also didn't say you weren't." He tilted his head slightly. "Who are you taking care of?" "That's not relevant." "It is if it affects your ability to work." "It won't." "Marlo." He said her name like he was testing its weight. "I'm not asking to be invasive. I'm asking because I've been doing this long enough to recognize when someone's running from something." "I'm not running," she said. "I'm working. For someone." She didn't answer. Thatcher leaned forward, resting his forearms on the desk. "Here's what I know. You're young, you're hurt. You're desperate enough to walk into a place like this and ask for work without a resume, without references, without any leverage. That tells me you're out of options." Marlo's jaw tightened. "It also tells me," Thatcher continued, "that you're carrying responsibility you shouldn't have to carry alone. I can handle it." "That's not the question." "Then what is?" "Whether you're safe." The word landed like a punch. Marlo looked away. I'm fine. The bruises say otherwise. They're old. Are they going to be replaced with new ones? Her throat tightened. She didn't answer. Thatcher exhaled slowly. I'm going to offer you a regular position. 4 days a week, 40 hours, minimum wage plus tips from the cleaning service charge. Marlowe's breath caught. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. His expression didn't change. If you miss a shift, you're done. If you show up late, you're done. If I find out you're lying to me about something that puts you or anyone else at risk, you're done. I understand. Do you? Yes. Thatcher studied her for a long moment. Then he slid a business card across the desk. That's my direct line. If something happens, if you need help, you call. Marlowe picked up the card. The weight of it felt heavier than it should. I won't need it, she said. Keep it anyway. She tucked it into her pocket. As she stood to leave, Thatcher said, one more thing. She paused. Whoever you're protecting, he said quietly, make sure they're worth it. Marlowe looked at him, and for a split second, she almost told him about Jamie, about Ivy, about the apartment with the broken lock and the landlord who kept threatening eviction, about the school calling and the system circling and the constant crushing fear that one wrong move would tear everything apart. But she didn't, because trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. They are, she said. Then she left. When Marlowe got home, it was almost 8 p.m. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the TV. Jamie was sitting in the same spot as yesterday, arms wrapped around their knees. Ivy was curled up next to them, half asleep. You're late, Jamie said. I know, I'm sorry. Marlowe dropped her bag by the door, wincing as the motion pulled at her ribs. Did you eat? Jamie gestured toward the counter. 2 empty ramen cups. Marlowe's chest tightened. That was the last of the food. I got the job, she said. I start Friday. Jamie's expression didn't change. How much? Enough. How much? Marlowe hesitated. Minimum wage, 40 hours a week. Jamie was quiet, doing the math. Years old, and they already knew how to calculate whether survival was possible. That's not enough, they said finally. It's a start. What about the rent? I'll figure it out. What about food? I'll figure it out. What about Jamie? Marlowe's voice came out sharper than she intended. She softened it. I'll figure it out. I always do. Jamie looked at her and Marlowe saw it. The exhaustion, the fear, the weight of trying to stay strong when you're too young to understand why you have to. Come here, Marlowe said quietly. Jamie hesitated, then unfolded from the couch and crossed the room. Marlowe pulled them into a hug, careful not to press too hard on her ribs. We're going to be okay, she whispered. I promise. Jamie didn't say anything. Promises didn't mean much when you'd heard them break before. That night, after Jamie and Ivy were asleep, Marlowe sat on the floor with her phone and the business card Thatcher had given her. She stared at the number. If something happens, if you need help, you call. She almost laughed. Help meant explaining. Explaining meant exposing. Exposing meant losing. Marlowe put the card in her wallet, behind her expired ID, and the photo of her mother she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Then she lay down on the floor, pulled the thinnest blanket over herself, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd get up. Tomorrow, she'd work. Tomorrow, she'd keep fighting, because Jamie and Ivy didn't have anyone else. And she'd burn herself to ashes before she let them go. Marlowe's first official shift started at 6 a.m. on Friday. She'd woken up at 4:30, moving carefully in the dark so she wouldn't disturb Jamie and Ivy. The apartment was freezing. The radiator had stopped working 2 days ago, and she hadn't had time to ask the landlord to fix it. She pulled on her uniform, wrapped her hand in fresh gauze, and left a note on the counter. Gone to work, cereal in the cupboard, lock the door. I'll be back by 3. Love you. The bus was mostly empty at that hour. Marlowe sat near the back, watching the city blur past. Her ribs still ached, but the ibuprofen helped. The bruise on her jaw had faded to something easier to hide with the collar of her shirt. She looked almost normal, almost. Gloria met her at the employee entrance with a cart already loaded. "You're early," she said. "Didn't want to risk being late." "Smart." Gloria handed her a key card. "You're on floors 4 through 6 today. Checkouts by 11, early arrivals at 2. Move fast. Stay thorough." Marlo nodded. The work was the same as the trial shift. Vacuum, wipe, fold, replace, but faster. Guests left behind messes that ranged from careless to outright disgusting. And Marlo learned not to react, not to the overflowing trash, not to the stains on the sheets, not to the half-empty bottles of expensive alcohol left on nightstands. She just cleaned. By 10 a.m., she'd finished 8 rooms. By noon, 15. Her hands were raw, her back ached, and she'd skipped both her breaks to stay ahead of schedule. At 1:30 p.m., Gloria found her in the linen closet on the 5th floor. "You're making the rest of us look bad," Gloria said, but there was no malice in it, just observation. "Sorry, don't be. Just don't burn yourself out in the first week." She paused. "You eat lunch?" Marlo shook her head. Gloria sighed and handed her a granola bar from her apron pocket. "Eat. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." Marlo took it. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just don't make me scrape you off the floor." By 3 p.m., Marlo had finished all 22 rooms on her floors. She clocked out, changed back into her street clothes, and checked her phone. No missed calls. Relief washed over her. She took the bus home, got off 3 stops early to save the fare, and walked the rest of the way. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. "Jamie?" she called. No answer. Panic spiked. She moved through the apartment quickly. Living room, kitchen, bathroom. The bedroom door was cracked open. Inside, Jamie and Ivy were sitting on the floor, surrounded by crayons and a stack of printer paper Marlo had stolen from the hotel weeks ago. Jamie looked up. "You're back." "Yeah." Marlo's chest loosened. "What are you doing?" "Drawing." Ivy held up a picture. Stick figures in front of a house with a triangle roof and a smiling sun. "It's beautiful," Marlo said. Ivy beamed. Jamie was quieter. "There was a lady at school today." Marlo's stomach dropped. "What lady?" "From the office. She wanted to know if we were okay." "What did you tell her?" "That we're fine." Jamie's voice was flat. "That you take care of us." "Good." "She didn't believe me." Marlo crouched down next to them. "Did she say anything else?" "That someone would come by to check on us." The words hit like ice water. "When?" "She didn't say." Marlo closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. This was it. This was what she'd been afraid of. The school had flagged them. Someone, a social worker, a case manager, someone with a clipboard, worry, and the authority to tear their lives apart, was coming. "It's going to be okay," she said, even though she didn't believe it. Jamie looked at her. 7 years old, and already too smart to fall for false comfort. "What are we going to do?" they asked. "We're going to clean," Marlo said. "We're going to make this place look perfect. And when they come, you're going to tell them the truth, that I take care of you, that we're safe, that we're fine. But we're not fine. They don't need to know that." Over the next 3 days, Marlo worked herself to the bone. She picked up an extra shift on Saturday, another on Sunday. She cleaned the apartment until her hands cracked and bled, scrubbing mold off the bathroom tiles and patching holes in the walls with spackle she bought at the dollar store. She hid everything that looked wrong. The eviction notice that had been taped to the door last month. The stack of unpaid bills on the counter. The fact that there was no food in the fridge except a half-gallon of milk and some leftover rice. She coached Jamie, told them what to say, what not to say. "We're fine. Marlo takes care of us. We go to school every day, we have food, we have clothes. We're safe." On Monday, someone knocked. Marlo opened the door to find a woman in her 40s with a kind face and a laminated badge clipped to her belt. "Marlo Pierce?" the woman asked. "Yes." "I'm Caroline Ruiz. I'm with Child Protective Services. Can I come in?" Marlo's heart was pounding, but she stepped aside. Of course. Caroline entered slowly, taking in the apartment. Her gaze swept over the clean floors, the freshly wiped counters, the couch where Jamie and Ivy sat stiffly, hands folded. "Hi, kids," Caroline said gently. Ivy looked at Marlo. Marlo nodded. "Hi." Ivy whispered. Caroline sat down in the chair across from them. "I'm here to make sure everyone's doing okay. Is that all right?" Jamie nodded. "Can you tell me about your day?" Caroline asked. "What do you do after school?" "We come home," Jamie said. "We do homework. Marlo makes dinner." "What does Marlo make?" "Pasta, rice, sometimes chicken." Caroline made a note. "And Marlo, she's your sister?" Jamie hesitated. "Yes." It was technically true. Half-sister from their mother's second marriage. But the distinction didn't matter. "Where are your parents?" Caroline asked. "Our mom died," Jamie said quietly. "Our dad left." Caroline's expression softened. "I'm sorry." She turned to Marlo. "How old are you?" 18. "And you're taking care of them alone?" "Yes." "Do you have any support, family, friends?" "I have a job," Marlo said. "I work at the Hale Grand. Housekeeping, 40 hours a week." Caroline made another note. "That's good, but raising 2 children on minimum wage is difficult. Have you applied for assistance?" Marlo's throat tightened. "No." "Why not?" "Because applying meant paperwork. Paperwork meant questions. Questions meant people looking too closely at how an 18-year-old ended up with 2 kids who weren't legally hers. It meant risking Jamie and Ivy being taken away." "I can handle it," Marlo said. Caroline looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Marlo, I'm not here to take them away. I'm here to help." "We don't need help." "That's not what the school says." Marlo's hands clenched. "The school doesn't know anything. They know Jamie's falling asleep in class. They know lunch money's bouncing. They know you haven't updated their medical records." Caroline's voice stayed gentle, but the words cut. "Those are red flags. I'll take care of it." "How?" "I just will." Caroline sighed. "Marlo, I believe you're doing your best. But your best might not be enough. These kids need stability. They need food, health care, a safe place to live. Can you provide that?" "Yes." "Can you prove it?" The question hung in the air. Marlo didn't have an answer. Caroline stood. "I'm going to recommend a follow-up visit in 2 weeks. In the meantime, I'm going to connect you with some resources, food assistance, housing support, legal aid. I don't want—" "It's not optional," Caroline said firmly. "If you refuse help, it looks like you're not prioritizing the children's well-being. Do you understand?" Marlo's chest tightened. "Yes." "Good." Caroline handed her a folder. "My number's in there. Call if you need anything." She paused at the door. "You love them. I can see that. But love isn't enough. They need more than you can give them alone." Then she left. Marlo stood frozen, staring at the closed door. Behind her, Jamie asked quietly, "Are they going to take us away?" "No," Marlo said. But for the first time, she wasn't sure she could keep that promise. That night, after Jamie and Ivy were asleep, Marlo sat on the fire escape with the folder Caroline had given her. Inside were pamphlets, phone numbers, applications. She didn't open them. Instead, she pulled out her phone and stared at Thatcher's business card again. "If something happens, if you need help, you call." Her finger hovered over the number. She didn't press it. She couldn't. Asking for help meant admitting she was failing. And Marlo couldn't fail, not when Jamie and Ivy were counting on her. The next day at work, Thatcher stopped her in the hallway. "Marlo," he said. She turned. "Yes?" He studied her for a moment, and Marlo had the uncomfortable sense that he could see the cracks forming. "You look tired," he said. "I'm fine." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Thatcher didn't argue. He just handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Advance on next week's pay. Gloria said you've been picking up extra shifts." Marlo stared at the envelope. I didn't ask for this. I know. I can't. You can, Thatcher said. And you will. Because whatever you're dealing with, you can't handle it if you're running on empty. Marlo's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me. His voice was quiet. Just take care of yourself. He walked away before she could respond. Marlo opened the envelope. Inside was $300 in cash. She stood in the hallway staring at it. And for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than fear. It wasn't relief. It wasn't hope. But it was close. The $300 lasted 8 days. Marlo paid the landlord $200 to buy them another month. She used $50 for groceries, real groceries, not just ramen and rice, and spent the rest on bus fare, laundry detergent, and a new pair of shoes for Ivy, whose toes had been cramping in the old ones. By day 9, they were back to counting pennies. But for those 8 days, Marlo had been able to breathe. She worked her shifts at the Hale Grand with mechanical precision. Gloria stopped commenting on her pace, just nodded approvingly when Marlo finished her floors ahead of schedule. The other housekeepers, Rosa, Daniela, an older woman named Meredith, started, leaving her alone, which Marlo preferred. She didn't come here to make friends. She came here to survive. On Thursday, 2 weeks after Caroline's visit, Marlo was restocking towels on the 4th floor when she felt it. The pull in her ribs had been getting worse. She'd been ignoring it, pushing through the pain the way she always did. But today it was sharp, insistent. Every breath felt like someone was pressing a blade between her bones. She leaned against the linen cart, waiting for it to pass. It didn't. You okay? Marlo looked up. Rosa was standing in the doorway of room 412, watching her. Fine, Marlo said automatically. Rosa crossed her arms. She was in her early 30s, with dark eyes that saw too much. You don't look fine. I'm fine. Uh-huh. Rosa didn't move. How long have you been working through broken ribs? Marlo's chest tightened. They're not broken. Bruised then. Same difference. Rosa stepped closer, lowering her voice. Look, I'm not going to report you or anything, but if you collapse on the job, Gloria's not going to be able to protect you. I'm not going to collapse. You sure about that? Marlo saw him straightened, forcing herself to stand without wincing. I need this job. I know. Rosa's expression softened. But you're no good to anyone if you're hurt. I'll manage. Rosa studied her for a moment longer, then sighed. Stubborn, I get it. She pulled a small bottle from her apron pocket and handed it to Marlo. Extra strength Tylenol. Take 3. Don't tell anyone I gave them to you. Marlo took the bottle. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't be stupid. Rosa walked away, and Marlo swallowed 3 pills dry. The pain dulled to something manageable. She finished her shift. That evening, Marlo got home to find Jamie sitting on the front steps of the building. Her stomach dropped. Why aren't you inside? The lock's broken, Jamie said. I couldn't get in. Marlo tried the door. The lock had finally given out completely. The mechanism stuck in a way that no amount of jiggling would fix. Where's Ivy? With Mrs. Cho. Jamie gestured to the apartment next door. She let us wait inside. Mrs. Cho was 78 and mostly deaf, but she was kind. Molly knocked, and the old woman opened the door with Ivy clutching her hand. Your lock broke, Mrs. Cho said in heavily accented English. I told landlord. He say he fix tomorrow. Thank you, Marlo said. She took Ivy's hand. Come on, we'll figure it out. They couldn't get into the apartment, which meant they couldn't get their clothes, their toothbrushes, the homework Jamie needed to turn in tomorrow. Marlo sat on the steps with Jamie and Ivy on either side of her, trying to think. Are we going to sleep out here? Ivy asked quietly. No, Marlo said. We'll find somewhere. Where? She didn't have an answer. The shelter would ask too many questions. A motel would cost money she didn't have. Sleeping on the street wasn't an option with 2 kids. Marlo pulled out her phone, staring at the screen. She had $47 in her bank account, not enough for a room. Her finger hovered over Thatcher's number. If something happens, if you need help, you call. She pressed dial before she could talk herself out of it. It rang twice. Marlo. His voice was calm, steady, like he'd been expecting her. Her throat tightened. I need help. Where are you? Home. But the lock broke and we can't get inside and I don't have anywhere else to go and... Slow down. Thatcher's voice cut through the spiral. Are you safe right now? Yes. Are you hurt? No. Okay, give me your address. Marlo hesitated. Giving him her address meant letting him see where she lived, meant exposing the broken building, the unsafe neighborhood, the reality she'd been trying to hide. Marlo, Thatcher said quietly, I can't help if I don't know where you are. She gave him the address. Stay where you are, he said. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. Marlo sat on the steps, arms around Jamie and Ivy, and waited. Thatcher arrived in 18 minutes. He pulled up in a black car that looked too expensive for this neighborhood, got out, and walked toward them without hesitation. He was wearing dark jeans and a plain shirt. No suit, no polished veneer, but he still looked like he didn't belong here. His gaze moved over the building, the broken lock, the rust on the fire escape. Then he looked at Marlo. These are your siblings, he said. It wasn't a question. Marlo nodded. Thatcher crouched down so he was eye level with Jamie and Ivy. I'm Thatcher, he said. His voice was quieter than Marlo had ever heard it. Your sister works for me. Jamie stared at him, silent. Ivy hid behind Marlo's leg. Thatcher didn't push. He just straightened and looked at Marlo. How long has the lock been broken? It's been sticking for weeks. Today, it gave out completely. Has your landlord been notified? Yes. And? He said he'd fix it tomorrow. Thatcher's jaw tightened. You can't stay here tonight. I know. Do you have somewhere to go? Marlo shook her head. Thatcher was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Come with me. Where? The hotel. I have vacant suites. Marlo's chest tightened. I can't afford. You're not paying. Thatcher's voice was firm. You work for me. That means you're my responsibility. Understood? I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's logistics. He gestured toward the car. Get in. Marlo looked at Jamie and Ivy. They were both watching her, waiting for her to decide if this man was safe. She didn't know, but she didn't have another option. Okay, she said quietly. The drive to the Hale Grand was silent. Jamie and Ivy sat in the back, pressed against each other. Marlo sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, watching the city blur past. Thatcher didn't ask questions. He didn't try to fill the silence. He just drove. When they arrived, he parked in the underground garage and led them to a service elevator Marlo had never used before. It required a key card and went straight to the 8th floor. The suite he unlocked was bigger than Marlo's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A king-sized bed sat in the main room with a pull-out couch and a separate bedroom visible through an open door. The bathroom had a soaking tub and marble counters. It was the kind of place Marlo had only seen in magazines. Ivy's eyes went wide. We're staying here? For tonight, Thatcher said. He set a key card on the table. There's food in the fridge, clean towels in the bathroom. If you need anything, call the front desk. Marlo's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thatcher looked at her and his expression was harder than before. Tomorrow we're going to talk. About what? About why an 18-year-old is raising 2 kids alone in a building that should be condemned. Marlo's pulse spiked. That's not. It is my business, Thatcher said quietly. Because you work for me, and because I don't let people who work for me fall through the cracks. He left before she could argue. That night, Marlo lay in the massive bed with Jamie and Ivy curled up on either side of her. The sheets were soft. The room was warm. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But safety was terrifying. Because safety meant letting her guard down, and letting her guard down meant someone could see the truth. Jamie stirred beside her. Marlo? Yeah? Is he going to help us? Marlo didn't know how to answer. I think so. Do you trust him? She thought about Thatcher's calm voice, the way he'd crouched down to talk to Jamie and Ivy, the fact that he'd come when she called. I don't know yet, she said honestly. Jamie was quiet for a moment, then, I'm scared. Me too. What if they take us away? They won't. How do you know? Because I won't let them. Jamie didn't say anything else, but they pressed closer, and Marlo wrapped her arms around them. Across the room, Ivy was already asleep, her breathing soft and even. Marlo stared at the ceiling, watching shadows shift. Tomorrow, she'd have to explain. Tomorrow, she'd have to trust. Tomorrow, everything could fall apart. But tonight, they were warm. Tonight, they were safe. And for now, that was enough. Marlo woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it came back, the broken lock, the phone call, Thatcher's car. She turned her head and saw Jamie and Ivy still asleep, tangled in blankets that probably cost more than a month's rent. It was 6:47 a.m. She needed to be at work by 8. Marlo slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake them. She found her phone on the nightstand and saw 2 texts from Gloria. Heard you had an emergency. Take the day. See you tomorrow. The second was from Thatcher. Come to my office at 10. Bring the kids. Marlo's stomach tightened. She showered quickly, using the expensive soap and shampoo that smelled like something she couldn't pronounce. When she came out, Jamie was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed. Where are we? They asked. The hotel. Thatcher let us stay here last night. Why? Because our lock was broken. Jamie processed this. Is he going to ask questions? Probably. What are we going to say? Marlo sat down next to them. The truth. The truth gets us taken away. Not all of it. Marlo's voice was quiet. Just enough. Jamie looked at her and Marlo saw the fear there. The distrust. The knowledge that adults didn't help. They just made things worse. I won't let anything happen to you, Marlo said. I promise. You can't promise that. I can try. 10 a.m. Marlo knocked on Thatcher's office door. Come in. She entered with Jamie and Ivy behind her. Ivy was holding Marlo's hand so tightly, it hurt. Thatcher was sitting behind his desk, but he stood when they entered. He gestured toward the chairs. Sit. Marlo sat. Jamie and Ivy climbed into the chair next to her, pressed together. Thatcher leaned against the front of his desk, arms crossed. He looked at Marlo for a long moment, then at the kids, then back at her. How old are they? He asked. 7 and 5. And they're your siblings. Half-siblings. Same mother. Where's your mother? Marlo's throat tightened. Dead. 2 years ago. Thatcher's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. I'm sorry. She nodded. And their father? Gone. He left when Ivy was born. What about yours? Never met him. Thatcher was quiet for a moment. So you've been raising them alone for 2 years? Yes. Since you were 16? Yes. Does anyone else know? The school, CPS, came to check on us 2 weeks ago. And? They're monitoring the situation. Marlo's voice stayed flat. They want to see if I can provide a stable environment. Can you? The question cut. Marlo looked at him. I'm trying. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer I have. Thatcher exhaled slowly. He moved to the chair behind his desk and sat down, steepling his fingers. Marlo, what you're doing is impossible. I'm doing it anyway. You're 18 years old. You're working 40 hours a week for minimum wage. You're living in a building that's falling apart. You can't keep this up. I don't have a choice. You do. Thatcher's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. You can let someone help you. Help how? Marlo's hands clenched. By calling CPS and telling them I can't handle it, by putting Jamie and Ivy in foster care, by proving that I'm not good enough. That's not what I'm suggesting. Then what are you suggesting? Thatcher leaned forward. I'm suggesting you stop trying to do this alone. I don't have anyone else. You have me. The words hung in the air. Marlo stared at him. Why? Why what? Why do you care? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Thatcher was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When I was 15, my mother died. My father was already gone. I had a younger brother, 12 years old. We had no family, no support. The state wanted to split us up." Marlowe's breath caught. "A man I barely knew stepped in," Thatcher continued. "He wasn't a good man, but he kept us together, and that mattered." "What happened?" "I worked for him, learned his business, made sure my brother had food, school, a future." Thatcher's gaze was steady. "I did whatever it took to keep us together. And your brother? He's a lawyer now, married, 2 kids. He doesn't talk to me much anymore, but he's safe. That's what matters." Marlowe didn't know what to say. "I'm not offering you charity," Thatcher said. "I'm offering you a way to survive. But you need to trust me." "I don't trust anyone." "I know." Thatcher's voice softened. "But you called me last night. That means part of you wants to." Marlowe looked at Jamie and Ivy. They were watching her, waiting. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "First, let me get your lock fixed. Today." The landlord said, "I don't care what the landlord said. I'm calling a locksmith. He'll be there this afternoon." Marlowe's throat tightened. "I can't afford. You're not paying." Thatcher cut her off. "Consider it a signing bonus." "For what?" "For trusting me." He paused. "Second, I want you to let me look into your situation, quietly, see what options you have." "Options for what?" "Housing, legal guardianship, resources you might not know about." Marlowe's chest tightened. "And if there aren't any options, then we figure out Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Thatcher didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." The locksmith arrived at Marlowe's apartment at 2 p.m. Thatcher had sent her home in a car, along with Jamie and Ivy, while he made the arrangements. The locksmith was professional, efficient, and didn't ask questions. He replaced the entire lock mechanism, installed a deadbolt, and handed Marlowe 3 new keys. "All set," he said. "How much do I owe you?" "Already taken care of." He left before she could argue. Marlowe stood in the doorway, staring at the new lock. It was solid, secure, the kind of thing she should have had months ago. Behind her, Jamie asked, "Why is he helping us?" "I don't know," Marlowe said. "Do you think he wants something?" The question made her stomach turn. She'd thought about that, about what men usually wanted when they offered help. But Thatcher hadn't looked at her that way. He'd looked at her like she was a problem to solve, not a thing to use. "I don't think so," she said finally. Jamie didn't look convinced. Over the next week, Marlowe kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Thatcher to ask for something in return, for the help to come with strings attached. It didn't. The lock stayed fixed. He gave her another advance on her paycheck without her asking. When Ivy got sick with a fever, he arranged for a doctor to come to the hotel. Off the books, no insurance required. The doctor prescribed antibiotics and told Marlowe the fever would break in 2 days. It did. Marlowe kept working her shifts, kept bringing Jamie and Ivy home, kept holding everything together with duct tape and sheer will. But something had shifted. The weight was still there, but it felt less crushing. On Friday, 2 weeks after the lock incident, Thatcher called her into his office again. "Sit," he said. Marlowe sat. He slid a folder across the desk. "I had someone look into your situation." Her pulse spiked. "What kind of someone?" "A lawyer, specializes in family law." "I told you I can't afford." "You're not paying," Thatcher said again. "Just listen." Marlowe opened the folder. Inside were documents. Legal terms she didn't understand. Phrases like guardianship petition, an emancipated minor, and kinship care. "What is this?" she asked. "Options." Thatcher leaned back in his chair. Right now, you're in a legal gray area. You're 18, which means you're an adult. But Jamie and Ivy aren't your legal dependents. If CPS decides you're not fit, they can take them. Marlowe's chest tightened. I know that. But there are ways to formalize the arrangement. Make it legal. Prove that you're their guardian. How? Petition for guardianship. It's not adoption. It's temporary, but it gives you legal authority. It also makes you eligible for support programs, foster care stipends, Medicaid, food assistance. Marlowe stared at the papers. And if I do this, then CPS has less ground to stand on. You're not just some kid trying to survive. You're a legal guardian doing everything by the book. What if they say no? Then we appeal. Thatcher's voice was firm. But the lawyer thinks you have a good case. You've been taking care of them for 2 years. You have a job. You're stable. I'm not stable. You're more stable than foster care. Marlowe looked at him. Why are you doing this? I told you, I don't let people who work for me fall through the cracks. This is more than that. Thatcher was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You remind me of someone. Who? Me. That night, Marlowe sat on the fire escape with the folder in her lap. She read through the documents slowly, trying to understand the legal jargon. Guardianship meant responsibility. It meant proving she could take care of Jamie and Ivy. It meant opening herself up to scrutiny. But it also meant protection. It meant no one could take them away without a fight. She pulled out her phone and called Thatcher. He answered on the second ring. Marlowe, I want to do it, she said. The guardianship thing. You're sure? No, but I don't have a better option. Okay. She heard him moving, the sound of papers shuffling. I'll set up a meeting with the lawyer. Monday work for you? Yes. Good. He paused. Marlowe. Yeah. You're doing the right thing. How do you know? Because you're still fighting. She didn't know what to say to that. Get some rest, Thatcher said quietly. You're going to need it. He hung up. Marlowe sat on the fire escape, staring at the city lights, and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The lawyer's name was Grace Mendoza. She was in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crack bones. Thatcher had arranged for them to meet at the hotel, in one of the conference rooms on the second floor. Marlowe arrived early, Jamie and Ivy in tow. Grace looked at them and smiled. It wasn't a pitying smile. It was professional. You must be Marlowe. Yes, ma'am. And these are Jamie and Ivy. The kids nodded. Grace gestured to the table. Let's sit. We have a lot to cover. For the next hour, Grace walked Marlowe through the process. Guardianship required documentation, proof of income, proof of housing, background checks, home visits, references. It required Marlowe to prove she was fit to raise 2 children. It's not going to be easy, Grace said. The court will scrutinize everything. Your age, your finances, your living situation. I know. But you have advantages. Grace tapped her pen against the notepad. You've been their primary caregiver for 2 years. You have a steady job. You have support. Support. Grace glanced toward the door, where Thatcher was standing. Marlowe hadn't noticed him come in. Mr. Hale has agreed to provide a character reference, Grace said. He's also offered to assist with housing arrangements. Marlowe looked at Thatcher. What does that mean? It means, Thatcher said, stepping into the room, that I own several residential properties. One of them is vacant. You can live there. Marlowe's breath caught. I can't afford. Reduced rent, Thatcher said. Subsidized through the hotel's employee housing program. You don't have an employee housing program. I do now. Marlowe stared at him. Why are you doing this? Because you need it. Thatcher's voice was calm. And because it makes the guardianship petition stronger. A stable home improves your case. Grace nodded. He's right. The court wants to see that you can provide a safe, consistent environment. Moving into better housing shows you're prioritizing the children's well-being. Marlowe felt like she was drowning. This is too much. It's what you need, Thatcher said simply. She looked at Jamie and Ivy. They were sitting quietly, watching the adults talk about their future. What do you think? Marlowe asked them. Jamie shrugged. I don't know. Ivy looked at Thatcher. Is the new place nice? It has 2 bedrooms, Thatcher said. A full kitchen, heat that works. Ivy's eyes widened. Can I have my own bed? Marlowe's throat tightened. Ivy had been sleeping on the couch for 2 years. Yes, Thatcher said. Ivy looked at Marlowe. I want to go there. Marlowe closed her eyes. Okay. The apartment Thatcher showed them was on the north side of the city, in a building that looked like it had been renovated within the last decade. The hallway was clean, the elevator worked, there were locks on every door. Inside, the apartment was small, but functional. 2 bedrooms, a galley kitchen, a living room with actual furniture. The walls were freshly painted. The floors were solid. It was the nicest place Marlowe had ever lived. Rent is $500 a month, Thatcher said. Utilities included. Marlowe did the math in her head. 500 was more than half her paycheck. Yeah, can't. You're also getting a raise, Thatcher said. $15 an hour. Effective immediately. That's not. It's market rate for experienced housekeeping staff, Thatcher interrupted. Gloria agrees. You've earned it. Marlowe stared at him. I don't understand. What's not to understand? Why you're helping us. Thatcher was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because someone helped me once. And I didn't forget. He handed her the keys. Move in this weekend. Let me know if you need help. Then he left. Marlowe stood in the empty apartment, Jamie and Ivy exploring the bedrooms, and tried to process what had just happened. A month ago, she'd been desperate, terrified, certain that everything was going to fall apart. Now she had a job with decent pay, an apartment with working locks, a lawyer helping her file for guardianship. None of it felt real. Jamie appeared in the doorway. There's a closet in my room. That's good. And a window. Also good. Jamie looked at her. Do you trust him? Marlowe thought about Thatcher, about the way he'd shown up when she called, about the lock, the doctor, the lawyer, this apartment. I think so, she said. What if he changes his mind? Then we figure something else out. What if there's nothing else? Marlowe pulled Jamie into a hug. There's always something else. We've made it this far, haven't we? Jamie nodded against her shoulder. We'll make it through this too, Marlowe said. She hoped she was right. They moved in on Saturday. It didn't take long. They didn't have much. Some clothes, a few dishes, the stuffed rabbit, the crayons and paper. Everything fit into 4 garbage bags and a cardboard box. Thatcher sent movers anyway. They arrived with a truck full of furniture, beds, dressers, a couch, a kitchen table, sheets and towels and dishes still in their packaging. We didn't order this, Marlowe said. The lead mover shrugged. It's on the invoice. Already paid. 4, Marlowe called Thatcher. You sent furniture, she said when he answered. You need furniture. I didn't ask for it. I know. Thatcher. Marlowe. His voice was patient. You have 2 kids. You can't sleep on the floor anymore. I'll pay you back. No, you won't. Yes, I will. Fine. He sounded amused. Take it out of your raise over the next decade. That's not. I have a meeting. Call if you need anything. He hung up. Marlowe stood in the living room surrounded by boxes and movers and furniture that cost more than she made in a year, and felt something break inside her, not in a bad way. In the way that happens when you've been holding yourself together for so long that you forget what it feels like to let go. She sat down on the new couch, put her face in her hands, and cried. Jamie sat down next to her. Are you okay? Yeah, Marlowe said, her voice cracked. I'm okay. Then why are you crying? Because someone's being nice to us. Jamie didn't understand, but they wrapped their arms around Marlowe anyway. Across the room, Ivy was already asleep in her new bed, the stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. For the first time in 2 years, Marlowe let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay, and the guardianship petition was filed on Wednesday. Grace had walked Marlowe through every page, explaining what each document meant, what the court would look for, what could go wrong. There were a lot of things that could go wrong. The petition required a home study. A social worker would visit the new apartment, interview Marlowe, interview the kids, inspect every room. They'd ask about income, about childcare, about emergency plans. They'd look for reasons to say no. The home study is scheduled for next Thursday, Grace said. That gives you 10 days to prepare. Prepare how? Make sure the apartment is clean, stock the fridge, have a fire escape plan, know where the nearest hospital is. Grace's voice was matter-of-fact. They're going to look for stability. Show them you have it. Marlo nodded, taking notes. One more thing, Grace said. They'll ask the kids questions, alone. Marlo's chest tightened. What kind of questions? About their life, how they feel, whether they feel safe. Grace met her eyes. They're going to try to determine if this is what Jamie and Ivy actually want, or if they're just going along with what you want. They want to stay with me. I believe you, but you need to make sure they can articulate that. That night, Marlo sat down with Jamie and Ivy at the new kitchen table. We need to talk about something, she said. Jamie looked wary. What? A social worker is going to come visit. They're going to ask you questions. What kind of questions? About living here, about me, about how you feel. Ivy frowned. Why? Because the court needs to make sure you're safe, Marlo said carefully. That you're happy, that you want to stay together. Jamie's expression darkened. Are they going to take us away? No, but they need to make sure this is the right place for you. It is. I know that, but you need to tell them that. Jamie was quiet for a moment. What if they don't believe us? Then we keep trying. And if they still don't believe us? Marlo's throat tightened. She didn't have a good answer for that. Let's not worry about that yet, she said. Let's just focus on being honest, okay? Jamie didn't look convinced, but they nodded. Ivy looked at Marlo. Can I tell them about my new bed? Yes, Marlo said, forcing a smile. You can tell them whatever you want. Over the next 10 days, Marlo worked herself to exhaustion. She scrubbed the apartment until it gleamed. She stocked the fridge with actual groceries, fruits, vegetables, milk, bread, things that looked like a real family lived there. She bought school supplies and hung Jamie's drawings on the fridge with magnets. She practiced what she'd say to the social worker. I've been taking care of them for 2 years. I have a stable job. We have a safe home. They're doing well in school. They're happy. She practiced until the words sounded natural. At work, she kept her head down and her pace steady. Gloria had noticed the raise, noticed the way Thatcher had been checking in more often, but she didn't comment. Rosa asked once if everything was okay. Fine, Marlo said. Rosa didn't push. On Tuesday, 3 days before the home study, Marlo got a call from Jamie's school. Miss Pierce, this is Principal Davidson. Can you come in this afternoon? Marlo's stomach dropped. Is something wrong? We need to discuss Jamie's attendance. Their attendance is fine. Actually, Jamie's missed 6 days this semester, and they've been late 17 times. Marlo closed her eyes. The missed days had been when Ivy was sick, when Marlo couldn't afford a babysitter. The late arrivals were from bus delays, from mornings when she'd worked overnight shifts and slept through the alarm. I'll be there at 3, she said. She clocked out early, took 2 buses, and arrived at the school at 3:12. Principal Davidson was a thin woman in her 50s, with gray hair and a perpetually tired expression. She gestured to a chair in her office. Jamie's a good student, she said. Smart, quiet, well-behaved, but the attendance is concerning. I know, I'm working on it. Working on it how? I have a better job now, better hours. It won't happen again. Davidson looked at her for a long moment. Ms. Pierce, I'm going to be direct with you. We have concerns about Jamie's home situation. Marlo's pulse spiked. Why? They're exhausted. They fall asleep in class. They don't have lunch money half the time. They're carrying stress that 7-year-olds shouldn't have to carry. I'm handling it. Are you? The question was blunt, honest. Marlo met her eyes. I'm 18 years old, raising 2 kids alone. I'm doing the best I can. I don't doubt that, Davidson said. Her voice softened slightly. But your best might not be enough. It has to be. Why? Because the alternative is worse. Davidson was quiet. Then she said, I received a call from Child Protective Services last week. They're monitoring your case. Marlowe's blood ran cold. And they asked about Jamie's school performance. I had to tell them the truth. What did you say? That Jamie is struggling, that there are red flags. Marlowe's hands clenched. You're making it harder for me to keep them. I'm documenting reality, Davidson said. If the reality changes, so will my reports. It is changing. I have a new apartment, a better job. I'm filing for guardianship. Davidson's expression shifted slightly. Guardianship? Yes, the petition was filed last week. The home study is Thursday. That's good. Davidson leaned back in her chair. That's very good. It shows you're taking responsibility. I've always been taking responsibility. I know, but now you're making it official. She paused. If you can prove stability, consistent attendance, regular meals, safe housing, it will help your case. I'm trying. Try harder. Davidson's voice was firm. Because if you don't, the state will make the decision for you. Marlowe left the school, feeling like she'd been punched in the chest. 6 absences. 17 late arrivals. Red flags. She'd been so focused on keeping them fed, keeping them safe, that she hadn't realized how visible the cracks were. She took the bus home, picked up Ivy from Mrs. Cho's apartment, and tried to keep her hands from shaking. That night, she made dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce, and sat down with Jamie and Ivy. We need to talk about school, she said. Jamie looked down at their plate. I know. You've been late a lot. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Marlowe's voice was gentle. But we need to fix it. Starting tomorrow, I'm setting 3 alarms. We're leaving 15 minutes earlier, okay? Jamie nodded. And if you're tired in class, you need to tell me. I'll figure something out. You're always tired, Jamie said quietly. Marlowe didn't have an answer for that. The home study was on Thursday at 10 a.m. Marlowe had taken the day off work. She'd cleaned the apartment again that morning, even though it was already spotless. She'd made sure Jamie and Ivy were dressed in clean clothes, hair brushed, faces washed. She'd made sure everything looked perfect. The social worker's name was Linda Kowalski. She was in her early 50s, with kind eyes and a clipboard that made Marlowe's stomach turn. Thank you for having me, Linda said, stepping inside. Of course. Linda walked through the apartment slowly, taking notes. She opened the fridge, checked the smoke detectors, looked at the locks on the windows. This is a nice place, she said. Thank you. How long have you been here? 2 weeks. And before that? Marlowe hesitated. An apartment on the east side. The building wasn't safe. Why did you move? My employer helped me find better housing. Linda made a note. Your employer is Thatcher Hale. Yes. And he owns this building. Yes. Does that create any conflicts of interest? Marlowe frowned. I don't understand. Are you being coerced in any way? Pressured to accept help in exchange for anything? The implication was clear. Marlowe's jaw tightened. No, he's helping because he can. That's all. Linda studied her for a moment. Okay. She sat down at the kitchen table and asked Marlowe a series of questions. About her income, about her schedule, about childcare arrangements, emergency contacts, medical care. Marlowe answered each one carefully, honestly. Then Linda asked to speak with Jamie and Ivy. Alone. Marlowe's chest tightened. Why alone? It's standard procedure. I need to make sure they feel comfortable speaking freely. They're 7 and 5. They're going to be scared. I understand, but it's necessary. Marlowe looked at Jamie and Ivy. They were sitting on the couch, watching the adults with wide eyes. It's okay, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Just answer her questions. Tell the truth. She left the room and stood in the hallway, heart pounding. She couldn't hear what they were saying. She counted the seconds, 312. When Linda opened the door, her expression was unreadable. Thank you, she said to Jamie and Ivy. Then, to Marlowe, Can we talk outside? Marlo's stomach dropped. Is something wrong? Just come outside. They stepped into the hallway. Linda closed the door behind them. Jamie told me something concerning, she said. Marlo's pulse spiked. What? They said you cry at night, that you work until you can barely stand, that you give them your food when there isn't enough. Marlo's throat tightened. They also said you're the only person who's ever protected them, that they'd rather be with you than anyone else, that they're terrified of being separated. Linda's voice softened. Marlo, you're doing everything you can, but you're drowning, and Jamie sees it. I'm not drowning. You are. Linda's voice was firm, but not unkind. And the court is going to see it too. So what do I do? You accept help. Real help, not just housing and a raise. You get support systems in place. Therapy for the kids, childcare, resources. I'm trying, I know. Linda put a hand on Marlo's shoulder. And I'm going to recommend approval for the guardianship. But you need to understand, this isn't over. The court will check in. If things slip, they'll intervene. Marlo's voice cracked. I can't lose them. Then don't give them a reason to take them away. That night, after Jamie and Ivy were asleep, Marlo sat on the couch with her phone. She stared at Thatcher's number for a long time. Then she called. Marlo. He answered immediately. How did it go? She's recommending approval. That's good. She also said I'm drowning. Thatcher was quiet for a moment. Are you? Yes. What do you need? Marlo closed her eyes. I don't know. Yes, you do. She did. She needed help. Real help. The kind that meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. Linda said I need support systems, she said. Therapy for the kids. Childcare. Okay. I can't afford. We'll figure it out, Thatcher said. What else? I need. Her voice broke. I need to know this isn't going to fall apart. It won't. How do you know? Because you won't let it. Marlo's throat tightened. What if I'm not enough? You are, Thatcher said quietly. But you don't have to be everything. Let people help you. Why do you care so much? I told you. You remind me of someone. Yourself. Yeah. Marlo was quiet for a long moment, then she said, Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Thatcher said. We're not done. What do you mean? The guardianship hearing is in 3 weeks. You need to be ready. I will be. I know you will. He paused. Get some rest, Marlo. You've earned it. He hung up. Marlo sat in the dark, staring at nothing. She'd trusted him with the truth, and he hadn't run. For the first time in 2 years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do this alone. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for October 12th, 3 weeks after the home study. Grace had prepared Marlo for what to expect. The judge would review the petition, the home study report, the financial documents. They'd ask questions. They'd scrutinize everything. They'd decide if Marlo was fit to raise Jamie and Ivy. The hearing will take about an hour, Grace said. Maybe less. The judge will ask you directly why you're seeking guardianship. What do I say? The truth, but I'd keep it simple. You've been their primary caregiver. You love them. You want to make it official so they're protected. Marlo nodded, taking notes. They'll also ask about your support system. Grace continued. Friends, family, anyone who can help if things get difficult. I don't have family. You have Mr. Hale. Marlo looked up. He's my employer. He's also your character reference, and he's willing to testify on your behalf if needed. He is? Yes, I spoke with him yesterday. Grace's expression was thoughtful. He's very invested in this outcome. Marlo didn't know what to say to that. The week before the hearing, Caroline Ruiz from CPS came back for a follow-up visit. She arrived unannounced, the way social workers always did, and Marlo's heart had jumped into her throat when she'd heard the knock. But Caroline had smiled when Marlo opened the door. "New apartment," she said. "This is good." "Yeah." Caroline walked through, taking in the furniture, the stocked fridge, the clean floors. She sat down with Jamie and Ivy, asked them gentle questions about school, about friends, about how they liked their new home. Jamie answered carefully. Ivy chattered about her bed. When Caroline was done, she pulled Marlo aside. "This is a significant improvement," she said. "The home study report was positive. Linda spoke highly of you. But the court is going to want to see sustained stability, not just 3 weeks. They'll want to see 6 months, a year, proof that this isn't temporary." Marlo's chest tightened. "I'm filing for guardianship. Doesn't that prove I'm committed?" "It proves intent," Caroline said. "But intent isn't the same as capacity." "What does that mean?" "It means the judge will look at your age, your income, your support system. They'll ask if you can really provide for 2 children long-term." "I can. I hope so." Caroline's voice was kind. "Because if the guardianship is denied, we'll have to explore other options." "Like what?" "Foster placement, kinship care with other relatives, adoption." "There are no other relatives." "Then foster placement." Marlo's hands clenched. "They're not going into foster care." "That's not your decision to make." "Yes, it is. I'm their sister." "You're not their legal guardian. Not yet." Caroline put a hand on Marlo's arm. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be realistic. The system doesn't always work the way we want it to. Then I'll make it work." Caroline looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Good luck at the hearing." The night before the hearing, Marlo couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible outcome. What if the judge said no? What if they decided she was too young, too poor, too unstable? What if they took Jamie and Ivy away? At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went into the living room. Jamie was asleep on the couch. They'd been having nightmares lately, and sleeping near Marlo helped. Marlo sat down on the floor next to them, watching them breathe. 7 years old, too young to carry this much fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jamie stirred but didn't wake. Marlo stayed there until the sun came up. The courthouse was downtown, a massive concrete building with security checkpoints and echoing hallways. Grace met Marlo outside at 8:45 a.m. She was wearing a sharp suit and carrying a briefcase. "Ready?" she asked. "No." "You'll be fine." Grace's voice was steady. "Just answer honestly. Don't over-explain. Let me handle the legal arguments." They went through security, took the elevator to the 4th floor, sat on a bench outside courtroom C. Jamie and Ivy were with Mrs. Cho. They'd wanted to come, but Grace had advised against it. The judge might ask to speak with them later, but it was better if they weren't sitting through the hearing. At 9:15, the courtroom doors opened. "Pierce, guardianship petition," a clerk called. Marlo stood on shaking legs and followed Grace inside. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, rows of benches, a judge's bench at the front, elevated and imposing. Judge Andrea Thornton was in her 60s, with sharp eyes and gray hair, pulled back in a tight bun. She looked at Marlo with the kind of expression that gave nothing away. "Ms. Pierce," she said, "please approach." Marlo walked forward, Grace beside her. The next hour was a blur. Grace presented the case, explained Marlo's history with Jamie and Ivy, detailed the improvements, the new apartment, the stable job, the support from Thatcher. The judge asked questions. "You're 18 years old, Ms. Pierce?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you've been caring for these children since you were 16? "Yes." "Why didn't you seek legal guardianship sooner?" Marlo hesitated. "I didn't know I could." "Or you were afraid the state would intervene?" The question was pointed. "Both," Marlo said honestly. Judge Thornton made a note. "Tell me about your income." Marlo explained her job at the Hale Grand, the raise, the 40 hours a week. "And your housing is subsidized by your employer?" Yes. Is there any impropriety in that arrangement? Marlowe's jaw tightened. No, Your Honor. Mr. Hale is helping because he can. That's all. Mr. Hale is here to testify? Grace nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Call him. A clerk opened the courtroom doors, and Thatcher walked in. He was wearing a suit, dark, perfectly tailored, and he moved with the same quiet authority he always had. He didn't look at Marlowe as he approached the stand. He was sworn in. Mr. Hale, Judge Thornton said, you employ Mrs. Pierce? Yes, Your Honor. For how long? 5 weeks. And in that time you've provided her with a raise, subsidized housing and legal assistance? Yes. Why? Thatcher didn't hesitate. Because she needed it, and because she's proven she's willing to work for it. You understand that some might view this as coercion? That you're using your position as her employer to exert influence? I understand how it might look, Thatcher said calmly. But that's not what's happening. Miss Pierce came to me asking for work. I gave her a job. She worked hard. I recognized that and compensated accordingly. When I learned about her situation with Jamie and Ivy, I offered help. She didn't ask for it. I offered. Why? Because I was in her position once, and someone helped me. I'm paying it forward. Judge Thornton studied him. You have no ulterior motive? No, Your Honor. You're not seeking custody yourself? No. You're not expecting anything in return? No. The judge made another note. Thank you, Mr. Hale. You may step down. Thatcher left the stand. As he passed Marlowe, he met her eyes for just a second. She saw something there she hadn't seen before. Belief. The hearing continued. The judge reviewed the home study report. Linda's recommendation, Caroline's follow-up notes. Finally, Judge Thornton looked at Marlowe. Miss Pierce, do you understand what you're asking for? Yes, Your Honor. Guardianship is a legal responsibility. It means you're accountable for these children's well-being, their education, their health, their safety. If you fail, the state will intervene. I understand. Do you believe you can provide for them adequately? Marlowe's throat tightened. I'm going to try. That's not what I asked. Yes, Marlowe said, her voice steadier. I believe I can. Judge Thornton was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm going to grant the petition. Marlowe's breath caught. Guardianship is hereby awarded to Marlowe Pierce for Jamie and Ivy Pierce, effective immediately. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months. Ms. Pierce, if your circumstances change, if you lose your job, your housing, or if the children's well-being is compromised in any way, the state will reassess. Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand the gravity of this responsibility? Yes. Then don't make me regret this decision. I won't. Judge Thornton nodded. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. Marlowe stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, hands shaking. Grace was smiling. You did it. I did it, Marlowe repeated, like she didn't believe it. Congratulations. Grace shook her hand. You're officially their legal guardian. Marlowe felt like she might cry, or collapse, or both. Thatcher appeared beside them. Congratulations. Thank you, Marlowe said. Her voice cracked. For everything. You earned it. I didn't, not alone. No one does anything alone, Thatcher said quietly. That's the point. Marlowe looked at him. Why did you help me? I told you. You remind me. Of yourself, I know. Marlowe's voice was firmer now. But it's more than that. Thatcher was quiet. For a moment. When my brother and I were separated, I promised myself that if I ever had the power to stop it from happening to someone else, I would. You called me that night. You asked for help. I wasn't going to let you fall through the cracks. I don't know how to repay you. You don't need to. Thatcher's expression softened slightly. Just take care of them. That's enough. Marlowe took the bus home. She picked up Jamie and Ivy from Mrs. Cho's apartment, and they walked up to their own place, the place with working locks and heat and 2 bedrooms. Did you win? Jamie asked. Yeah, Marlo said. I'm your legal guardian now. Jamie's expression didn't change. What does that mean? It means no one can take you away. It means we're official. So we're safe? Marlo crouched down so she was eye level with them. We're safe. Jamie looked at her for a long moment. Then they hugged her. It was the first time in months that Jamie had initiated touch. Marlo wrapped her arms around them and felt Ivy join in, and for the first time in 2 years, she let herself relax. Not completely, not forever, but enough. Epilogue. 6 months later. The 6-month review happened on a Tuesday in April. Caroline came to the apartment, clipboard in hand, and walked through with the same professional care she always had. But this time, she was smiling. The apartment looks good, she said. Thanks. Jamie's attendance is perfect. Ivy's thriving in kindergarten. Caroline looked at Marlo. You've done well. We've done well, Marlo corrected. It wasn't just me. I know. Caroline closed her folder. I'm recommending the guardianship be made permanent. No more reviews unless there's a complaint. Marlo's chest loosened. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did the work. That night, Marlo sat on the couch with Jamie and Ivy, watching a movie they'd rented from the library. Ivy fell asleep halfway through, head on Marlo's lap. Jamie stayed awake, focused on the screen. Marlo, they said quietly. Yeah? Are we going to be okay? Yeah, Marlo said. We're going to be okay. How do you know? Because we've made it this far, and we're not done yet. Jamie nodded slowly. Okay. They leaned against her shoulder and Marlo wrapped an arm around them. Outside, the city hummed. The radiator clicked. The world beat moving. But inside this apartment, this small, safe space they'd fought so hard to keep, everything was still. Marlo closed her eyes and let herself feel it. Not relief, not happiness, just the quiet, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they were going to make it.